Good morning. Hopefully everything's working fine. I can't hear myself today. So I'm just gonna trust that everything's working fine. So I have saffron tea today. Happy Friday, Leah. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Yesterday was Leah and I's 4th wedding anniversary. We went to dinner. We went to this place called Clay and Fire here in Kansas City. We went there sometime last year, I think, for the first time. And it was pretty good. It's like this, it's described as a Near Eastern place. So we got a meze platter, which was just like a variety of hummuses and some flatbread. We ate that. And then we got like a kebab platter that was 3 kebabs. There was like a chicken one. I'm not sure if there was a pork one or not, but there was like it was good. It was really good. We got these mocktails that ended up costing a total of $17, and they were awful. They were so gross. So Leah and I made a pact that we're never getting gross drinks or like just drinks in general at a restaurant, because it's never worth it. We were talking about that all day, the whole time we were eating. Alrighty, so I feel like I'm out of my groove because of Wednesday's episode, and like I said, I can like hear myself, so I'm monitoring what I'm saying, and I can kind of, I don't know, it keeps me more focused. But saffron tea, I can talk about that for a second. When we got home from dinner, Leah was just like, she sat on the couch and she was just so tired all of a sudden. I feel like it's pretty common for her after she eats to just suddenly feel exhausted. So she went upstairs to shower, and then I tried to kind of like rush clean the kitchen. It was kind of a mess. Clean things up, get it ready for her. Because I wanted to do like a little ritual thing. I feel like it's hard. One of the hardest parts of leaving a religion is the spiritual practices. I feel like actually mean something. And it's surprising how much your spiritual practices actually add to your life. And when you no longer have, or like feel like you're able to use your spiritual practices, it kind of leaves this this hole. There was a period of time after like we've made the decision to officially like leave the church, where, I mean, obviously I struggled with my mental health a lot in the last year. And one of the ways that I would cope with that before was through prayer. And you kind of have this idea that everything's going to work out. You've got God watching over you. Everything, there's a plan for your life, you know. So you can kind of let go of the wheel almost a little. And after leaving, I kept like having this urge to pray. Like I wanted to get some of these hard thoughts out and kind of give them to somebody else, you know. But there was this weird feeling that I wasn't allowed to anymore. Especially because, like, if there was a God and I just, like, left his true church or whatever, I feel like he wouldn't really want to hear from me. But I also know that, like, from the Christian perspective, God always wants to hear from you. Anyways, sort of a sidetrack. I've been trying to establish some new spiritual practices. And I think I've mentioned that the core of my spirituality right now has been story, as well as like my connection to maybe more so like nature or the earth or the species, I guess. I feel like spirituality in general terms is often described as, actually, I kind of want to see. So we were at the thrift store and we bought these books. These were 50 cents each. I'm obsessed with them. So I got Applied Electronics 2nd edition. It's like this old vintage book about like electrodynamics and stuff. It's got all these math and diagrams and stuff, and I don't know any of it. I have no idea how to understand it or read it, but it's a cool blue book with a dryer sheet in it, I guess. Where's my trash? The reason why I'm mentioning these is because, oh, and then this one's freaking sweet. Hold on. Actually, I'm so pumped about this. Look at this book. The Complete Home Handyman's Guide. And it's like got like this, I don't know, is that embossed? Is that what that's called? Check that out. That's so sick. And it's got like all this stuff about how to take care of your home. Like doing all sorts of repairs. Like it teaches you how to be a plumber, how to like seal cracks and stuff. I don't know. I feel like this is sweet. How to use saws, how to fix a saw that's broken, how bolts work. This is awesome. Everybody needs a complete home handyman's guide. But this was the one I wanted to bring up. The dictionary. The New Webster Encyclopedic Dictionary of the English Language, including a dictionary of synonyms and 12 supplementary reference sections. It's this giant dictionary. So let's see what when was this one published? This one was published in... Okay, it's in Roman numerals, so I have no idea when this one was published. It's the copyright is MCMLXXI. Good luck. They gotta have like a year printed, right? I don't know. They don't. All right, we're gonna look for spirituality. Wow, it's got like so much stuff in the back. Okay. I haven't used a QRST. I'm in T's right now, so I gotta go back. SPL HIJKL. Whoa, Spindrift. That's funny. Leah and I've been drinking this drink called Spindrift. The definition of Spindrift apparently is a noun. The blinding drift of salt water blown from the surface of the sea in hurricanes. That's pretty cool. Spirituality, found it. The state or quality of being spiritual. Spiritual character, immateriality, what belongs to the church or to religion as distinct from temporalities, generally in plural. Okay. Is there just like a spiritual? Here we go. Let's see what that one means. Spiritual, pertaining to or consisting of spirit, not material, incorporeal, pertaining to the mind or intellect, mental, intellectual, pertaining to the soul or its affections, as influenced by the divine spirit, proceeding from or controlled and inspired by the Holy Spirit, holy, sacred, divine, relating to sacred things, not lay or temporal. Ecclesiastical. Okay. I feel like that's super vague. Not helpful. Boo. Boo, old dictionary. Good morning, Colin. Thank you for the happy anniversary wishes. Okay. But generally, spirituality is this idea of feeling connected to something bigger than yourself, right? I don't know how much I've touched on, like, how I've established a new sense of spirituality, but it's like I said, it's more so the story, which I think plays really nicely and easily into your place as far as the human species is concerned, but also like the story of your evolution, I think is a huge part of spirituality. As I've been reading more about internal family systems, it seems to make more and more sense that our DNA and our story, the story of our genetics and our ancestors, plays a huge part in who we are and the way that we view the world. Anyways, the whole point of this was I was trying to come up with a ritual to celebrate 4 years of marriage. And Leah and I bought a sage bundle with a I think it's called like Palo Alto is the wood, which has some like symbolic meaning. Obviously bundles of sage are heavily kind of tied to smudging, which is apparently you can't really do smudging unless you are Native American. So we did a smoke cleansing, a generic smoke cleansing where you just burn something and the idea is that the smoke is cleansing. And Palo Alto, I think that's what the word is. That's not it. Definitely not it. Palo wood sticks. Palo Santo. There we go. Palo Santo is like this cleansing wood. It's a traditional natural remedy you can apply to your skin or burn as incense to reduce pain, inflammation, and stress. And I've been stressing Leah out. Obviously. Clearly. Did you see her? Have you seen her hairline? It's starting to look more like mine every single day. Just kidding. It's not. She looks fantastic. She's literally done nothing but glow up in the last 2 years. Unbelievable. So I wanted to do this ritual. Leah came downstairs and she was so tired that she started crying. We haven't had a single anniversary where she hasn't cried. Usually it's because of disappointment, because I'm terrible at planning things and being thoughtful according to a schedule. This year it was because she was so tired and her tummy hoarded from the food. I'm not calling you out, honey. She said, sorry, Leah chatted just now and said, wow, thanks for calling me out, LOL. I'm calling myself out for causing my beautiful, lovely wife to cry at nearly every holiday. My family didn't really do holidays a whole lot after we moved to the farm. I've talked about this in therapy a lot. Why am I going this direction? I feel like now I've alluded to it and I can't just leave it. So anyways, Christmas on the farm was somewhat traumatizing for me. To just like, it was just a normal day, basically. We still had to like wake up and do chores and milk cows, and then we got like banana peppers and oranges in our stockings, which is not like, I'm not trying to complain, at least we had something, you know, but it was a pretty stark contrast from how our Christmases were in Utah. And it just felt like the magic was gone from it. And so as a kid, I kind of like turned off the excitement of holidays, including like my birthday and Easter and like all the holidays. So when Leah and I got married, I apparently married the biggest Christmas fan and holiday fan that has ever existed. If you know Leah, she watches Hallmark movies unironically. So that's the kind of person she is, loving Christmas and romance and the magic of every holiday, including the magic of an anniversary, which is why I decided I wanted to do a magical ritual for us to cleanse the bad mojo of the last 4 years and graduate and move on to better and bigger things. So we grabbed this sage Palo Santo smudging thing. We have these like mushroom crystals and rocks and stuff, and I put them in a bowl, and I had Leah reach in and intuitively grab one out, and she grabbed the yellow one and the kind of greenish one, and I said, interesting, because I forgot what those rocks do. I need to look it up again. But so we did that, and then I brewed some saffron tea. We bought saffron flowers from Costco like 2 years ago. It was like it was somewhere between $30 and $50 for this like teeny tiny jar of saffron flowers. And so then I've been too afraid to use it, but apparently it's super good for depression and like all of these other things. So I was like, I better start using this saffron. So we made saffron tea, and we drank it in like a ceremonious way. Did the smudging, spread it around her, and she was like, I don't think this is working because I just want to go to bed. It was $15. Leah says it was $15. Sorry, I exaggerate things, I guess. I'm so dramatic. It felt like $50. Can you imagine buying like a teeny tiny thing for $15? Nah, it has to have been more than that. There's no way I'm that dramatic. How much is saffron flower per ounce? I think we got like an ounce of saffron. So it says 1 ounce of saffron is $79. So it must not be an ounce per gram. Yeah, it was probably closer to $15. Damn. Sorry. So dramatic. Made the saffron tea. We drank it. I dipped my fingers in the saffron tea, and I drew a little heart around Leah's face. Like I traced her hairline all the way down to her chin, and then I traced around to the other side. Put some Celtic sea salt in there. Had her hold some Celtic sea salt and throw it over her shoulder. You know, the usual. And then like I read some stuff to her that was like, we're cleansing something from our lives, and we're inviting new energy and making space for new love and joy and connection, all the good stuff. And it felt pretty significant to me, honestly, in a somewhat strange way. I really did start to feel kind of connected to this random ritual that Leah and I made up. And I think part of it is people just want something to apply meaning to. When we do something ritualistic, I feel like our brains just kind of connect the dots and make it mean something. But it's a really, like, in a real way, in a powerful way, as opposed to a fake way. Which is why I think things like prayer and the sacrament and all these other sort of rituals that we do within religion, they're so meaningful for so many people. And it's honestly one of the hardest parts of giving up religion is losing out on some of these rituals. In the same way that when we were reading the thing about smudging, you're not allowed to do smudging unless you're Native American. It's kind of that same feeling with prayer when you're ex-Mormon or ex-Christian. It's like, it just feels like you're not allowed to do it. Anyways, I think the last 4 years of marriage first of all, best 4 years of my life. Probably the worst 4 years of Leah's life. We were on the way to dinner. We were listening to Bill Withers' Lean on Me. And I just was like crying. All of a sudden, I just had tears like welling up in my eyes, kind of just going down my face. Because I'm just really grateful for Leah for letting me lean on her. And I have felt a lot of guilt and shame from having to lean on somebody. Especially somebody who I'm supposed to be providing for, caring for. And when I was listening to that song, we were listening to that song, I kind of had this realization that I have carried all this guilt. Like, Leah has done this very gracious thing of supporting me and allowing me to lean on her when I've been down. And I'm just like, I'm not feeling grateful. I'm feeling like embarrassed. So I'm trying, as we move into this next phase, to just be grateful for the support that she's given me and the time that she's given me to heal and process my life and some of the things I've gone through. It's really hard being depressed and having ADHD at the same time and recovering from trauma and all this other stuff. But not because it's hard to really do the work necessarily. I mean, pretty much all I've done is quit my job and then hang out with my wife for the last year. It's not very hard. But I think it's kind of terrifying to look at yourself and realize that you need to heal. And it's really scary to lean on people and rely on somebody else to support you and to kind of accept that, especially considering the traditional dynamics of marriage and relationships between a man and a woman, like typically the expectation is that the man should be providing for and taking care of the woman. So there's some weirdness that comes up in that. There's also this like pressure to be better, you know, to make progress, and sometimes linear progress. But I feel like life is really just a series of ups and downs, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Before we did our ritual thing with the saffron tea and all that, and actually before Leah showered, we went outside and just like stood in the backyard barefoot. You could just listen to the birds, and I hugged her and I tried to look into her eyes, but she was so tired and her tummy hoarded so much that she didn't want to look at me. But for me, that was a pretty grounding experience. I'm not exactly sure how it felt for her to stand there. I had this thought that one day we're probably going to look back on these days, this time and phase of our life and our marriage as like the good old days. Because if you look at it from the perspective of being through it, Leah and I both work from home at the moment. We get all of this time together. We live in this kind of magical cottage with a ton of personality in a really amazing location with nature and fresh air and community, and we're so eager to get to that next phase of our journey where my business or whatever it is that like I'm trying to build here, it is a business. I think I feel somewhat embarrassed to say that, like that I'm trying to build a business and a brand. But obviously that's my intention here. We're excited for the time when it's like taken off and I'm making money, or I'm able to provide a little bit more. We have a consistent, steady income, like all those things that come from either having a full-time job or a successful business. But I'm just really grateful that we get to hang out every day and like really enjoy each other's presence. So as much as it's hard to be in it, it was interesting to take the perspective of like, what are we going to think in 10, 20 years when we're looking back on the whole context of our life? Because I'm sure we're going to figure things out. Even if things are rocky and hard and scary right now, with time, we'll figure things out. And that's a reassuring perspective to adopt. And realizing that this is just the beginning of the journey. And there's pros and cons to this part, the same way that there are going to be pros and cons to the future. I think that's the gist of what I wanted to say this morning. Well, actually, The most powerful part of that experience last night for me was as we were standing in our backyard talking, and like I was sort of able to adopt this perspective, like step out of being in this moment of depression and like recovery and whatever else the connotations and experiences we're going through. While we were sitting there and talking, I felt like I was able to be more present than I typically am. There have been a few moments, and it often will happen when I'm on something, whether that's cannabis or some other kind of psychoactive substance. Occasionally, I feel like I become hyper present and hyper aware of the environment that I'm in. And last night, I really felt like, as I was standing there with Leah, it's like my presence got like sucked back into that moment. There's a pond by our house with a little fountain in it, and I could like hear the water splashing in it, whereas before that was just like background noise. I could hear the wind blowing through the leaves of the trees in our backyard, the birds kind of doing their sunset chirping, the cars driving off in the distance. Like there's a train that goes through downtown. Like I could hear, almost felt like I could hear the rumble of the tracks. When normally, like, you're in a situation, I don't know where you are right now, but if you take a moment to just kind of like listen to the space that you're in, you might have the sound of like an AC or a heater, a fan, maybe cars outside. There's all of this noise that kind of just gets blocked out. I think it's when I was in that psychology class. No, this is a different class. I think this was light and sound. We learned about the senses and how much we can actually pay attention to, how much of our sensory input can we pay attention to. Okay, so estimates suggest we can attend to around 70 to 80 bits of information per second, whereas the brain receives approximately 11 million bits per second. So, obviously a fraction of the input that we have. But I feel like in those moments where you can become aware and really ground yourself in the environment, and it's like almost like opening up your lens to let more light in. It's like I don't think I'm gonna forget about that moment anytime soon, because I let so much in. It felt like it was just being like written into my soul. And the way I think about souls now and spirits, and again, like the way I've tried to make sense of spirituality has been kind of through like DNA. We all need to sleep, and my current theory is this idea that like while we're asleep, our body is sifting through all the experiences of the day and taking notes, essentially. It's like reviewing the notes that we took. And the speed that we can take notes depends on how present we are, how much emotion we're feeling in the moment. So you might go through an experience in the day where you get really angry, or you feel super excited or disappointed. Really any like intense emotion, it almost like expands and opens up your senses, and you start to take more notes of that situation. And then while we're sleeping, it's like we go through and we review those notes. I had therapy on Wednesday, and during the conversation with my therapist, I felt like anger for the first time in a really, really long time. Like real, like frustration, resentment, anger. And then I had a dream that night where, like, again, I kind of felt that anger and that frustration, but it was super amplified towards the person that I was feeling it towards. And I don't know if that was me like processing something that had been in there for so long that I hadn't looked at, or if it was basically like taking notes of the situation. But I think that those experiences get written into our DNA. Like, I think of our DNA somewhat as like a series of if, then, and, or gates. Like code, like computer code, like binary, except for with DNA, you have two strands. How many different what would that be called? Types of DNA base pairs are there? I don't know what the word would be. There are 4 types of nitrogenous bases in DNA: adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. These bases are the building blocks of DNA and are arranged in a specific order to carry genetic information. Okay, so you have 4 different options. So with binary, you have 2 options. You have on or off. On or off. But then with this one, rather than having a 0 and a 1, you have an A, C, G, or T. So you have 4 different options, and you can combine those in any way. So, and it's paired, right? So that's 4 squared, which would be 16 different combinations of a pair that you can have. And so you can encode just like a ridiculous amount of information, orders of magnitude more than what you can encode with a single string of 0s and 1s, because you have 2 strings of 4 different options, right? So you just have this like incredibly dense code. And my feeling and my belief is that when we sleep, our body takes notes. Our mind takes notes. That's when we rewire things. That's when we actually learn. If you study for hours and hours and hours and then you don't sleep, you're going to forget everything, because your body doesn't have that downtime to go in and write things down. And that's our story. That's where like my soul is in my DNA, and my soul, my spirit, my past, all of this information that has been passed down to me comes from my ancestors, my genetics. Oh, sorry, bumped the microphone. And like I was saying earlier, as I've read more about internal family systems and mono mind versus plural mind, is like, and in spirituality, they kind of teach that we have everything that we need to get through life, that we're like equipped with everything that we need to know. And there's this like, you have access to wisdom from God or the spirit that is beyond what you have access to from your own personal experience. So the idea of like plural mind versus mono mind, and the true self versus these parts of ourself that can manifest or take over. I kind of feel like your true self is, in terms of maybe like thinking of this from a Christian lens, your true self would be like your actual soul, or spirit, your essence, right? And then all these other parts of yourself would be the divine, or like that, the collective consciousness, collective experience. I don't know, your ability to tap into more than just yourself. I don't know if that makes any sense. I feel like I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole at the end of this. I was supposed to just cut things off. Oh well. Colin just commented and said, a bit of advice that my dad is giving me my whole life is to slow down and enjoy the ride. Yeah. I think the biggest realization that I've had, honestly, in the last 4 years of marriage is that it went by way faster than I thought it would. Like if you compare that time frame, that's a whole undergrad. That's a bachelor's degree. It felt like it took me so long to get through college. The last 4 years, it's just been like gone. And I think part of it is because I'm like rushing to try and get to the next thing, to the next step, the next phase. Like I graduated. I'm supposed to be in a stable job, working my way up the career ladder, or the corporate ladder, like building my 401k. I mean, we have some retirement plans and savings, but like there's this sense of pressure and urgency to like get it all figured out. So I definitely agree and echo that I feel like the goal of our life is to slow down as much as possible. And like I've kind of mentioned, increase the frame rate, our sense of presence, take more notes. So the plan of salvation in Mormonism is this idea that like we existed before we came to this earth, and then we come to this earth and we get to grow and experience having a body and making mistakes. And then when we die, depending on how we lived, we can become like God, like literally have our own planets and spirit children, and like we can become the gods of our own heavenly families. And I feel like since leaving Mormonism, I've kind of been able to see that that's like a parallel to the human experience. Like you start off as this little kid with just like raw intuition, instincts, curiosity, confidence. Like kids just have, like, it seems like they have everything they need to figure stuff out. And then as you grow up and become an adult, you're supposed to acquire all these tools, and depending on how you mature, then you have this opportunity to create your own life, have kids, build your story and your experience. And while I was practicing Mormon, I was like excited to get to the next phase, to like die, go to heaven, and finally be able to live a full life as a god, right? But, and like for eternity is kind of this idea, right? But honestly, 80 years is long enough for me. That's a long time. I feel like by the time I get done with 80 years, if there's nothing after this, I'm cool with that. As long as I actually enjoy those 80 years, if I'm present for those 80 years, if I slow down and live those 80 years. But if I'm just like rushing to get to the next life and get to my mansions in heaven, and that's going to fix it all, 80 years is definitely not enough. I had somebody send me a comment they were trying to leave, This is Milikow. He's commented on a few of my videos. I'm trying to remember, May 30th. I don't know what episode that would have been. But he tried to comment this, but I think it was too long, so YouTube deleted it. He said, "You caught my interest at around 41 minutes. I also hear my voice in my head when I'm thinking, for the most part. I'm somewhere between that and conceptual thinking. Some people don't think in words at all. In my own healing, I've found that most of my thoughts don't come from me. Whether they come from parts of myself or other spiritual beings isn't always clear, but I believe we are influenced by all kinds of things beyond our awareness, and the quality of what you are receptive to depends on what beliefs you reinforce. You tune your own radio with your choices, beliefs, lifestyle, actions, habits, and words. The mind is a garden. Weeds must be pulled continually, and healthy seeds must be planted and nurtured. So healing takes time, but it's working, even when you're just starting and progress is hard to see. Demons and angels can see everything inside us and influence our thinking to whatever degree we accept and allow. Evil entities will pull up everything negative and try to make us feel horrible about ourselves. This battle has been a major part of my story. Our true selves, or the soul, or God, or the universe, whatever you call it, is also there to help as much as we accept and allow. And personally, I believe that when we take mushrooms, they can speak to us too. It's more telepathic in nature, less words, and I've noticed that demons tend to use language more because it's 1 degree separated from true direct meaning, and they can use it to twist logic and perception in order to make us miserable and feed them. I started feeling a split between my lower self and my higher self. I saw 2 main parts before I learned about IFS and the idea of multiple parts. The part of myself that's physical, mortal, vulnerable, afraid, sensitive, self-centered, and desperately trying to cope. The other part sees the bigger picture, has faith, remembers compassion, and isn't blinded by anger. I wanted to go in 2 directions. I wanted to live in 2 different ways, but there was tension. My more enlightened side was impatient and too forceful with the side that experiences pain, fear, struggle, and burnout. The darker side felt threatened by the changes the lighter side wants to make, and it doesn't want to believe that if I live in that certain way, things will actually get better. I think they're learning to understand each other a bit more. So I'm going to pause for a second. Obviously, there's some mysticism being added into this theory and interpretation. I tend to separate more of that mysticism out and try to think of it in a more scientific or analytical way. But I think that the concept of demons and angels, or good parts and bad parts inside of us, fear is very real, and it's protective. It's meant to keep us safe. But we see it as this negative emotion, this negative thing. And one of the core principles of internal family systems, or IFS, is that ultimately the parts of ourself are trying to maintain homeostasis and protect the system. So it sees, IFS defines a person, a whole person, as a system created of many parts, the same way we have many different organs working in homeostasis to keep us healthy. Our minds are similar. But I like what he says about the mind as a garden. Weeds must be pulled continually, and healthy seeds must be planted and nurtured. Weeds, if you've done meditation, you've probably noticed that sometimes thoughts just pop up. You can't really control your thoughts. The only thing you control is how you respond to your thoughts. So these weeds, or thoughts that come from outside of us, or the way I think about it is from the right hemisphere of our brain, the subconscious, this part that is more aware of our full story and our DNA. And demons and angels can see everything inside us and influence our thinking to whatever degree we accept and allow. So these parts of us that dwell or exist in our subconscious are typically like there's in IFS it says there's like an infinite or indiscriminate, I don't know actually what the exact word is, but a large number of parts within us. But you can only really like talk to or communicate or connect or with like a limited number of them. But when they're not like in the spotlight or at the table or in the chair, however you want to think of it, and they're just kind of like swimming through our subconscious, they can see everything inside us. Like they are part of us. They are inside of us. They are us. And so they're going to know the best ways to make us feel afraid so that we don't move out of homeostasis. And potentially the best ways to move us in the right direction and kind of like heal us. The nice thing about parts and the way that IFS presents it is that different parts of us have different talents and skills. So it's not all up to one consciousness or one person to figure out all of this. I don't think any of us feel equipped to do this solo, to go through life solo. So that's kind of reassuring. But so he says, evil entities will pull up everything negative and try to make us feel horrible about ourselves. Shame is one of the best tools that our body and our like mind or these parts of us can use to manipulate our actions in a way. So if there's a part of us that feels like it's not safe to pursue our dreams or connect with somebody fully, we're going to feel maybe like this shame that we aren't worthy of doing it, or that we'll fail, or whatever, right? These fearful thoughts. And so it keeps us from taking risks, keeps us from fulfilling our true potential. And he also talks about demons tend to use language more because it's 1 degree separated from true direct meaning, and they can use it to twist logic and perception in order to make us miserable and feed them. When we pay attention to our feelings, how am I feeling right now? Instead of trying to articulate those feelings and what they might mean, I feel like it's communicating in a much more pure and full way. It's very hard to communicate in words and get the exact meaning across. Whereas our emotions like have so much more information in them. And when you think of the way that like a higher being might communicate, it's going to be with more direct meaning and less so symbols of meaning. There's this movie, what is the quote is, I can see the heat. I can see the heat. It's like this girl who has autism cowgirl movie. Temple Grandin. I think she has a photographic memory or something, but the way that it describes meaning, she says like, if I tell you the word shoe, there's an image that comes to your mind, or maybe a definition, or people think in different ways, right? Some people think more conceptually, more image-wise, or more word-wise. If I say the word shoe, it has a certain meaning to you, but that meaning is influenced by all of the shoes that you've seen in your life, what you associate with shoes. If I say the word red shoe, now you're thinking of a completely different image in your head. If I say dog, maybe a specific breed pops into your head. And so this, using words to communicate, you're not actually saying, you're not communicating the message or the information that you're trying to. You're communicating through symbols of meaning. Whereas if you can communicate with feelings or direct meaning, that is a significantly more powerful form of communication. So when we feel ourselves like saying in our head, or we can hear that voice like saying, you're a failure, you're a loser, don't take risks, all of that stuff, that's likely going to be one of those parts of yourself coming out to keep you stuck, but protected, safe from risks. I just want to quickly finish reading this because, like I said, he left this comment, but it wasn't able to stay because I think it's too long. So where I left off was, I think they're learning to understand each other a bit more. But this started at least a year ago when I started wondering if I'm two people inside. It was confusing. I very gradually have started identifying with the holistic right brain / spiritual identity and viewing the ego / lower self / left brain separation consciousness as my avatar, a person who is worthy of love no matter what, because they are blind and they are under my guidance. Somebody that I work closely and patiently with, who must teach, deprogram, retrain, negotiate, and ultimately convince them to make the right choices. Somebody who is not me, but they think they are me, and they want to be in control, so I need to help it learn its proper role as a trusting servant instead of an orange tyrant with a bald comb over, or with a bad comb over. Right brain, left brain, lower self, higher self, ego, soul, God, superego, dark and light. Yet another way of describing this split is the observer and the thinker. I keep reminding myself that I'm only observing. I'm not the one judging my experience. I'm the silent background. I am infinite space and infinite capacity. Nothing has or can ever hurt me. The life I have is the life I've asked for, even if unconsciously. Nothing is random, and it's all fair. There may be evil in the world, but I am not a victim in any situation. God, or whatever you call that transcendent higher power we have access to, will bend and transmute any evil influence into something positive if you're strong enough. For example, I may have been traumatized by a psychotic narcissist, but because of it, I learned a ton of very important skills and knowledge that will guide me and protect me for the rest of my life. I can heal. That's no problem. We're programmed to heal. You just have to choose it. Although the demons possessing that person intended to tear my family apart and break us irreparably, they're not ultimately in control. We choose. I chose to let go of fear and anger. I chose to ask how this experience could possibly have happened to serve me rather than hurt me. There is always a how. You can stay destroyed after trauma or start rebuilding yourself. I think that was actually left on the episode where I was talking about the first time I met Nyx. Or like talked to Nyx, this other entity in my head or within me. And I wanted to clarify that when I say I like to remove the mysticism from things, it's not because I don't think that the mysticism is the true explanation. It's certainly possible that like angels and demons is the correct word or term to use, but also the meaning that you're communicating through those words is really important and powerful. And I think they're good words for describing these helpful and maybe destructive parts of ourselves. But I just really appreciated this comment. It's good to know that there are people trying to figure these things out, thinking about these things. who are having somewhat similar experiences. And I think that's why so many different spiritual practices or religions seem to all be saying the same thing, just with different words and different terms. Is because there really is something bigger going on that we don't understand. And science is really far behind in our understanding of the human experience. Those questions like, why are we here? How does all of this work? But I can't imagine that thousands of years of theology, mythology, mysticism, religion, there's so much overlap, so much consistency in this experience that there's got to be something to it. It's just the story that you choose to adhere to can be dangerous and powerful. And I think that's the core reason why I felt like I needed to leave Mormonism, was because I felt like I was being used somewhat as a part of this story. And there's certainly value that comes from that story. But I didn't really feel like it was the most accurate or honest or true version of the story. I don't know. We'll call it there. That's the end of the episode. Happy Friday, y'all. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Shout out to Leah for 4 years of marriage. And I'm very excited to see where the next 4 years take us, because I know it's going to be awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. Love you.